Welcome, everyone, to the What Women Watch podcast, where sisters meet the screen, with hosts Deann and Rochelle. Today we are joined by a special guest, Deann's husband, Paul. Say hi, Paul.
Hey, everyone.
Once again, you will hear opinions you never asked for but get to hear anyway. Each week, me and my sister get together to watch and discuss the highs and lows of the movie we have picked. Please don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at What Women Watch Podcast, and on Twitter at What Women Watch. You can also leave us reviews and comments, and we will try to address those as we can. Who knows, maybe we will even shout some of you out on here if you ask a good enough question. Thank you for joining us today for our 5th episode. It is now time to jump into our next movie review.
This week we watched Scream. The stars of the show were Neve Campbell as Sydney, Skeet Ulrich as Billy, Matthew Lillard as Stu, Courtney Cox as Gail, and David Arquette as Dewey. The director was Wes Craven, who went on to also direct Screams 2 through 4, and he also directed A Nightmare on Elm Street. Looking into his directing history, though, he also directed like a lot of horror movies. That must have been what he was into.
Yeah, it was.
So basically, in the movie Scream, there is a killer on the loose in a small town called Woodsboro. Eventually, school is canceled and a curfew is placed for the kids' safety. Everyone is freaked out and trying to survive in a very teenage way. They throw a party, and the killers show up and create havoc and horror. Dun, dun, dun. It's time for the Big 5 breakdown. Our first point that we wanted to talk about is Ghostface. That is the killer of the show. He wears a mask and a costume, and it's called Ghostface. So that was our first point that we wanted to talk about. So, Rochelle?
We wanted to talk specifically about like just the way he acted and like the way the killer interacted in the world of this movie, because something that Scream did that a lot of horror movies don't do is the victims get to fight back when they're being killed. You know, like, it's not just them running and it's just a scene where they're just running and tripping and falling and then the killer kills them. No, they're punching and fighting and screaming and kicking, and, you know, like, it's what would actually happen if you were getting attacked. It's not unrealistic like some horror movies tend to be.
Right. Paul, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, seeing Ghostface looking for his victims in this movie too, you got to see a different side than other scary movies have. Most of the time you just see them kill them and then that's it. But this time you actually got to see Ghostface go look through the house for the victim, got to see him spying on these victims. Also, you got to see Ghostface being frustrated at not killing his victims.
Yeah, especially when they get away for a second. He gets frustrated and ugh, you know, and you hear him make a noise.
Right.
Which kind of gives away that he's a man kind of earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
Because you hear him.
Right. You know? Also, with talking about Ghostface, I wanted to hit on that. I feel like with this movie, as soon as it started, I was like, I see how they got people to watch this. And it was Drew Barrymore. As soon as the phone rings and she answers it, I'm like, oh, there she is. That's the woman of the show, you know. And I mean, obviously she dies very, very early on, so she wasn't the main character. But I could see how that would hook people in of like, this is a Drew Barrymore show, you know. And she's very good at what she does. I could see the appeal that, you know, she had. She also did really good.
Yes.
At the beginning of the movie, she sold it very well. Of like, kind of naive, but also smart and not really wanting to play it for, because she answers the phone and she's like, he says, "What is your name?" And she's like, "No, what's your name?" Like, she doesn't just give out all the information. She is trying to be safe. And then all of a sudden he's like, "I see you." And she's like, "Oh, okay, well,
yeah,
this is bad. I'm gonna die."
Yeah. During the movie, me and Paul actually spent some time trying to figure out in which moments, because the killers come out to be Billy and Stu, anybody who's seen the movie. Spoiler alert if you haven't, which is for all of our reviews, but anyway. Me and Paul spent some time trying to figure out when it was Stu and when it was Billy, and that was a fun little game that we kind of played while we watched the movie.
Do you think the movie did well enough that you could tell the different actors doing it, or do you think it was a stunt actor doing it, and you couldn't really tell who was in it? What was y'all's opinion on that?
Well, I think that you could definitely tell when it was Stu.
Yeah.
There was quite a few points that kind of drew me to Stu being one of the killers. Billy was a little bit harder. It's basically he was being over cautious about the whole situation. Like when Stu would say something, he would try to chime in and say, no, it's not like that. Or
Right. I do have a question for both of you because I'm not a big horror movie fan.
Yeah.
But y'all are.
Yeah. We're each
Right.
other's dates when we go.
Right. So how do y'all think they did writing teenage killers? Because they couldn't be very skilled. This is two teenage boys that are on a rampage and they're very just angry, and so like how do y'all think it came across? Do y'all think it was good writing? Because like I can't really say if it was that great or not because I'm not big into horror, like I said. But y'all watching horror movie films, do you think they did good? Of like while you were watching it, you were like, yeah, that's a teenage boy, or that's a teenager. That's not a professional killer. Basically, how did Ghostface do?
Well, for the teenage killing part, the experience, it's like they were killing different people. Like even the ones that didn't even have a motive. Like why would you kill that person? So it's a lot of spontaneous killings rather than people that matter.
Yeah, like you hear, especially if you watch like crime shows, like serial killers usually have a pattern, usually have a type. Especially because they're not just regular killers, they kill a lot of people. So it's different. Usually there's something the cops can like, oh, he's going to kill blonde girls, something like that. And like Paul said, they don't follow that. It's just like, it's like they're just reacting out of pure rage, which I think does fit the teenage boy kind of stereotype in a movie, at least, with just pure rage and hormones. If a teenage boy would be a serial killer, I feel like the movie did a good job of that.
Another thing for me is Stu explaining the steps on how to kill someone. That for me was more of a tell sign, being that he was a teenager, and the technical part of it just was very young-ish. And also him saying only a man could do it.
Yeah.
Throughout the franchise, you can pretty much tell that it's not always just a man doing it, but...
Well, yeah, because they got beat up by a bunch of women.
Yeah, Ghostface definitely took a beating from some of the women in this movie.
All right, so topic number 2, we wanted to talk about the adults in this film because a lot of the film focuses on a lot of the teenagers, but we wanted to just shed some light on the adults or the lack of adults in this film. So go ahead, Paul, you'll go first.
Yeah, so the adults not being home. They were just away and they left their teenage kids be home alone. And during this chaos, they had a party with no adults there. The adult supervision and the adult guidance was just not there through these teens in this movie.
Yeah, like the parents didn't really seem present. Like the only parents I can remember is the parents of Drew's character at the very beginning, and they're somewhere and then they show up right as she's getting murdered. Sydney's dad, who leaves to go on a trip again right at the beginning before he knows that there's a serial killer on the loose, to be fair to him. But then Tatum's mom is very aware that Sydney's being targeted and lets Sydney and Tatum go to a party.
Right.
And then Dewey is supposed to be chaperoning, but he just drops them off and then kind of leaves to go flirt with Gail. And then Gail is an adult who just only cares about the story. It kind of feels like she, at that point in this franchise, didn't care who was going to die. She just wanted to catch it on film.
Right.
So there was no adult where I was like, that's a responsible adult.
Right. I took note of certain adults, and one of my notes was about the sheriff told Dewey to watch Sydney. He seriously said, do not take your eye off of her. This is very serious. Watch her. And the very next scene is him dropping his sister and Sydney off to a party.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just so irresponsible and so kind of out there because First off, this is your job. You were told, I don't care if they want to go to the party. No, there's a killer out there.
Yeah.
You know, so that was kind of crazy for me, for him being an adult. And I understand he was a young adult, but that kind of seemed
He's
out.
not that young.
Yeah, he's not that young. And I don't think as a big brother you would just drop your sister off to a house that you're a cop. You know the insides of, you know, how dangerous things are going on, even if they're not telling the public everything. You know how dangerous this is. You know that there's a killer on the loose. And it's kind of unbelievable that he would just drop them off and, like you said, go flirt with Gail.
Yeah.
That was kind of out there for me. It was also kind of out there for me that the dad is leaving. I don't care if it's for work or whatever his excuse was. Around her mother's death anniversary.
Yes.
That's weird to me because you know that your daughter, she's obviously having a hard time with this, and you just leave her alone on the anniversary. Like, you're not going to be there on the anniversary of your wife and her mother's death. That's weird to me. What did y'all think about that?
Yeah, I didn't notice that until you said it, but that is odd.
It's odd.
That's
as a parent to do.
If he did, like, maybe he's like wants to go grieve alone or something, or he just didn't think about it, and you should probably think about it.
Right.
Yeah, Sydney's a teenager and has
She's
a
grieving.
lot going on.
Yeah.
So leaving her alone in this time, you know, is just going to be damaging to her.
Right, and as a father, you're supposed to protect. And,
yeah.
You know.
And the trust, you know, with that being gone, you know, not being able to talk about it, you know, kind of lose out on that too. So.
Right.
Yeah, like they could have done like some sort of memorial for her or something. It's
right.
The first anniversary.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be different. It'd be like 10 years
down
like
the
that.
road.
But this is the first anniversary. And
exactly. So that was kind of weird to me. It was the first anniversary, and that's, I don't know, that just wasn't very fatherly to me to do to your daughter. The only adult that came across to me, like, I was like, okay, they seem like they're taking this seriously, was the principal.
Yeah.
I did think the principal did take it very seriously. If you listen to his announcements going on during the day, he's like, hey guys, stay safe, go home early. This is the time of the, what's it called? The curfew. He's telling the kids, like, as soon as it becomes a problem, like, children are in the hallway. There's, like, I think it's at the time of the second murder happened or something, or they're running through the hallway with
the
masks and stuff. They're making it a joke. He shuts down the school.
Yeah.
That's a very neat thing to do as a principal, to be like, no, it's not even safe to be here because y'all are taking this as a joke, and this isn't a joke. So he was the one adult in the film that I was like, I felt like he took it pretty seriously. I thought he took his job seriously too, because as a principal, you have to think you're responsible for all these students. He just lost 2 of his students, one the boyfriend and the girl, Drew Barrymore, whoever she played.
I think it was Kate, but I always get the name wrong. So.
But so losing 2 students and then seeing students joking in the hallway about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So he shut down the school. I thought he was the only adult in the film that I was like, that would probably be the reaction.
I just thought of another set of parents that I'm like, where were they? How did Stu throw a whole house party? Where's his mom and dad?
Right.
Like, did they just, there's a serial, like, they don't know it's Stu. Oh, there's a serial killer. I'm just going to leave town. Both of us. You have a party. Like, what kind of situation happened there?
Yeah, like, what? Are his parents normally not around, or?
Yeah. Like, because Sydney's dad left before it was announced that this happened. That makes sense.
Well, yeah, and even if he'd have wanted to turn back, he had already gotten stolen, you realize. Like, he got taken.
Kidnapped him.
So it's not like he could turn around and come back.
Yeah, where the hell is Stu's mom and dad?
Yeah, the principal, like I said, was one of my favorite adults in there. He, like Deann was saying, made a whole curfew about it and made sure the kids were safe. So I think that was responsible on his part.
All right, topic number 3. We wanted to take note about how this was a solvable mystery. So some movies will fall into the mystery category, where even some TV shows where you're supposed to be able to solve the mystery by the end of it. And a lot of TV shows like to give you that aha factor, but they do it in a way that it's like they don't even give you a person that you could have guessed. It's like a background character or a person you've seen one time in a little bitty scene. And that's, to me, it defeats the purpose of making it a mystery. Make it
Yeah.
a mystery that's solvable. And this movie, I think, did really good of doing that. It was a main character that acted weird at points. They, like, both of them, Stu acted weird in different ways, and Billy acted weird in different ways. So I liked the way that this movie did this. So, for example, I have that Billy being there that night that Sydney first gets attacked. That was a very big, like, it might be him. Because she's getting attacked. You see Ghostface leave, and then Billy comes to the window. So it makes you think, oh, it could be him. And then also, Stu and Billy and the group of friends are all talking about, they're like, oh my God, there's someone out there, and, you know, this girl died, and I wonder what happened. And Stu just keeps going on and on about, it must be a big man. A big man would have to be able, it would have to be a big man to be able to accomplish what this man accomplished. And he's basically hyping up this himself. But that's a telltale sign that it's him, because he's not being like, oh yeah, that's, you know, they shouldn't be doing that. He's like, it must be some big buff guy that, you know. So what was y'all's take on that?
So my take on it, which I have a couple points in there that I made. Stu explaining the steps on how to kill someone in death. That's kind of psycho for me. Also, when Tatum was supposed to be at the house, at Sydney's house for 7 o'clock, but didn't show, Stu was with Tatum during that time. So when the killer on the phone with Sydney said, "Are you alone?" he knew. So the other point, two more points that I have, is Billy being overly cautious about what Stu is saying the whole entire time in the movie. And my last one is when Sydney is in the bedroom at the end, and she talks to Billy about who was your first phone call. Mm-hmm. And she explains, well, that would be kind of great killer alibi.
If you use your first phone call to call me.
Right, yeah.
So I thought it wasn't you because you were in jail.
That's right, yeah. So that's all my points there for that one.
Yeah, what I had was that Stu and Billy knew things that the killers needed to know, which is what you're kind of talking about, is they knew the things that when they found out about a situation, the killer acted on that information. And if you watch closely, you can see it happening. You can see that Stu and Billy overhear something or are present for a conversation, and then the killer uses that information. Like when Tatum and Sydney talk about when Tatum's going to get there and the fact that she's not there. Stu knows that, who tells Billy, and then Billy shows up in Ghostface and tries to kill her, but he just attacks her, and then the cops show up.
Yeah.
Right, and it's done in a subtle way. It's not done in an obvious way.
It's not obvious.
You have to be paying attention.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Whenever you feel like you got to the end of the movie, you felt like you could be like, I bet you I know who it is.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And sometimes you're like, oh, maybe it's this person. And then it's this random off-the-wall character.
Yes.
But this movie didn't do that. This movie stuck to, it's going to be somebody we know. And I like that a lot.
I do too, because I don't like horror. I don't like mysteries in general. That you're like, oh, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna figure it out, and then it shows up at the end, and you're like, how in the hell?
Right.
There was no clue.
Because to me, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a big horror fan because I'm not big on violence in movies. I don't find it entertaining. But one of the most entertaining parts of a horror movie or of a mystery is solving it.
Yes.
I do like that aspect of it. I like to be able to figure out who did it or what's going on, no matter what the mystery is. And so if you don't give me enough clues as a viewer to figure it out, well, then it wasn't fun.
Yeah,
because then I'm like, oh, well, I just wasted all my time watching this movie, and I didn't even have the opportunity to figure it out who it was.
Yeah.
And so that kind of takes the fun out of it, and to me, that's what I watch it for. Is for that part.
Yeah.
And so if that part isn't there, I don't like it. So that was the reason that I enjoyed this movie. You know, even though I don't particularly like horror movies, is because it had that aspect in it of it's Billy, which is her boyfriend, which he has moments where he looks really, really creepy. But then it makes you second guess it because he's pretty good at manipulating her.
Yes.
Because he's like, really? We've been
me?
together for 3 years and you think it's me? Like, Sydney. You know, like, he plays the victim really, really well. Like, how dare you think that it's me? So he does a really good job of manipulating and making you second guess it. Stu doesn't do as well. He's kind of, you can kind of look at Stu and be like,
he seems crazy.
He seems like he could be the one to do it. But Billy, at certain points, you're like, oh, I think it's him. And then at other points, you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Could he be capable? And also, you have to think, why would Ghostface go after his girlfriend?
Yes.
There's also that aspect because, yes, Billy has the look in his eye of like he could probably hurt somebody. But whenever he's talking to Sydney, he has like this softness to him that kind of throws you off his track.
Yeah. Something else I had written was whoever wrote, I don't know if it was the writer or the director, but they made sure that when a kill was happening, Stu or Billy was gone, like from like witnesses. You know what I mean? So like when Billy was killing somebody, Stu was surrounded by witnesses. And then when Stu was killing somebody, Billy was surrounded by witnesses. So they made sure that they had like
alibis for each other.
But also that it was conceivable that they could have killed somebody at that time. Because sometimes movies are like, oh, this person's the killer, and you're like, how the hell did they do that if they were there at that time?
Right.
You know, they break the rules of like continuity and stuff. It doesn't make any sense because they weren't there. They either weren't there to hear the information to lead them to this thing, or they were present when that kill was taking place, so they couldn't have committed it.
Right,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? So you can't figure it out doubly because they're showing you fake stuff. You know, they're breaking. You can't time travel unless it's a time travel fucking movie. You know?
Yeah. Did you notice that too, Paul?
Yes. Through the Scream franchise, they do that a lot. They make sure that they have alibis. They make sure they're working in twos most of the time.
Yeah.
And you never know, there might be a third person in there somewhere, you know. But that's what I like mostly about my horror movies that I watch is I have a suspect list, and if I can at least get one name at the very end and it's there, I feel like I got it accomplished. Sometimes I get more than one, and I'm right, but sometimes it doesn't happen. But I like a little suspense at the end too.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, topic number 4. So there's a part of the movie where Sydney and her friend are shopping in a store, and there's a conversation that they're having about how Sydney's still a virgin and she's been with Billy for a long time, and he's been waiting on her to, you know, break her virginity with him or whatever you want to call it. And basically, we want to talk about the fact that women feel so lucky if a guy is willing to wait for them, and how we feel about that. So, Rochelle?
So, what I had kind of written was, at the very, very beginning of the movie, Billy looks like he's like, oh, I've been thinking about you in that way, but I know you don't want to do that yet, so I'm respecting your boundary. And then literally halfway through the movie, he's like, hey man, I know your mom was just killed a year ago, and you haven't wanted to touch me, but like, can we get over that soon? Because I'm ready. And he completely flips, and then right after that scene is the scene you're talking about where they're in the grocery store, her and Tatum, Sydney and Tatum, and Sydney's like, he's right, like most guys wouldn't want to be with me because you know, they wouldn't want to wait and stuff like that, and I'm really lucky to have him. And Tatum's like, girl, no, he's gonna be fine, you don't have to do that if you're not ready, and he can just wait and get over himself. And she is right, because
right. I agree with Tatum because I'm so tired. My note right here says bullshit. I call bullshit. I'm so tired of people being like, you're so lucky you have a guy that's nice to you.
Yeah.
We should have so much more higher standards of what we put up with being with a man, like, or with being with anybody other than them just being nice to us. Like, oh, you're so lucky.
Yeah.
You found someone that respects you. Yeah, he better.
Yeah.
He better, because I'm not going to be with him.
Yeah.
Why are you with somebody that you feel pressured to be with? Like, especially as a teenager.
Yeah.
Why is it so natural and why is it so common for teenagers to be pressuring each other in that kind of way? That shouldn't be the norm, you know?
Yeah, Sydney says, I'm lucky he's not pressuring me. But that's not true. He literally just pressured her.
Right.
Like, she's so in her head, and we're so convinced as women that guys are nice if they're not, I guess, raping us, that she's like, he's not pressuring me, so I need to be like, girl, he was just pressuring you.
Right.
He was just telling you to get over your mom's death so that y'all could sleep together.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, so what I have is just because Billy's being manipulative doesn't mean that Sydney should give in.
Yeah.
When she or anyone is ready, you're ready.
Yeah.
Nobody should feel pressured into sexual activities, especially as a teenager.
Yeah.
You got a lot of stuff going on as a teenager. You do not need to push further into that because there's a lot of responsibilities that come with that. And pretty much, you do you, but at the same time, make sure that you're not hurting someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it really resonated with me because me and my husband, who is Paul, we are high school sweethearts. So we knew each other as teenagers. And something that was a big issue with adults that we knew were they absolutely could not fathom that we were not sleeping together.
Yeah.
And we were like, no, we like to date, we like to talk, and they couldn't fathom that. So they went from, at first they were saying, oh girl, you lucky, you got a good one. And I'm like, yeah, he's good, but not just because of that.
Yeah.
He is a honest to God good person, not just because he's like, I'm not giving him the option to pressure me. I wouldn't be with him. I have to be with him for other reasons.
Yeah.
And then they went from that to straight up teasing my husband and being rude to him. There were several times where he got name called and by adults in my family and by his family and everything, where we both got bullied by our adults in the situation, not even our peers. Our peers, I don't remember many of our peers being like, oh, why hasn't it happened yet or anything. But the adults in the situation, absolutely. There were so many of them that were like, oh, but it just happened, so y'all better watch out. And me and him were like, okay, but why are we being pressured to do this? So I do feel like there's a pressure on teenagers sometimes, and there shouldn't be. They're teenagers, they're still babies, they're young. If they can date and do it, like, there shouldn't be a pressure to, oh, now you're in a relationship, it should turn into a sexual relationship.
Yeah.
There's so much more to a relationship than that. So I don't feel like there should be that pressure. And for Sydney, that's why this stuck out to me, because I'm so sick of people saying, oh, you're so lucky he's not pressuring you. No, it shouldn't even be an option for him to pressure me.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be an option.
Yeah, if your partner is pressuring you into sex, get a new partner. It
shouldn't be your partner.
Get a new partner.
Right.
Also, another thing too is know what you want.
Yeah.
If that is what you want sex or you want sexual activities, between you and your partner, then make that known to the other partner. Don't just start doing something and then expect that is what's going to happen.
Right.
Yes.
I've always said there's plenty of people out there that want what you want.
Yeah.
Go with that person. Don't pick a person that obviously doesn't want it. Because I've had guy friends in the past, I've had people in the past say, oh, but it's a challenge. No. Don't make it your challenge. Don't make it a game to try to get her virginity. That's rude.
Yeah, or his virginity.
Yeah, or his virginity. That's not nice, and that's rude, and we shouldn't just be lucky that my partner is going to be nice to me and respect my body.
Yeah.
No, that's going to be expected, or you're not my partner.
Yeah, exactly.
How about we have higher expectations for people?
Yeah.
I certainly have higher expectations for myself.
Yeah.
I always have. I told, and you can attest, you're right here. I told him very early on, I said, if that's what you want, go find someone else. Because you're not going to get it with me. It's just not going to happen.
Like, and I can remember, I'm your sister, so I was there. I can remember times where people would just completely disrespect y'all and just be like, oh, like, disregard y'all's relationship. Like, oh, y'all don't even, like, y'all say y'all love each other, but y'all don't even know because y'all haven't slept together. In what way is that how you figure out you love somebody? Like,
right.
That's so dumb. You don't have to do that.
Right. People told us, we were getting married, and people were like, well, how y'all gonna, what if y'all get married and then y'all figure out y'all are not compatible? And then in my head, I was like, I had kind of a freak out moment because stuff starts getting to you.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with Paul at one point, and he was like, okay, well then, all those other things we love about each other, that's what we'll focus on.
Yeah.
So we had built such a strong foundation in a relationship together that had nothing to do with that we weren't even worried about it.
Yeah.
We were like, no, it's going to happen whenever we want it to happen. We're not just going to let people pressure us into it because it's what is expected of us. I know you felt pressured. It's not just a woman pressure. It's also a man pressure to, always feel like you want it or you're not a man, right?
Well, friends in school, your peers, they pressure you sometimes. They talk about what they've done and then they go to ask you, and then you're like, oh, I don't know how to answer this question because I've never done this before. And then you get made fun of if you do not know anything about it.
I think that is the difference between being like a woman, like a girl going to high school and a boy, though, because like as a woman, we're not pressuring each other usually. It's not, or at least my friends weren't. It wasn't, what are you comfortable with? We're very protective over each other. And I think as a guy, you had a different experience because your guys were like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why you're not with her? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was a few points. I mean, that guy friends asked different questions, and it's like, number one, it's my personal business, so that shouldn't be broadcasted out to everyone. But yeah, the pressure was there, not only just by your peers at school, but by adults that you were around too. Different male figures asking different questions, and it's like, come on.
Sliding you condoms for prom.
Yeah, stuff like that. So,
right. So it's not just
teaching you different ways, saying different things. It's like, no,
right. So it's not just girls being pressured to have sex at such a young age. It's also the guys. Like, guys are brought up to have sex at a young age, and that's just, I don't know. I don't feel like that should be normal.
No,
that should be normalized, and you definitely shouldn't be looked down upon if you're not doing it. Like, what the hell is that about?
Well, sex was the last thing I was thinking about at a teenager. I was wanting to play sports. I was wanting to go outside, go play football with my friends.
Right, and we thoroughly enjoyed spending time together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sitting around a bonfire, talking about ghost stories, or watching a movie together.
Yeah.
Going meet, my sister in college and having a weekend together. Like, doing things like that is going shopping. There were so many other things that we liked to do.
Yeah.
And we were like, why is everybody focused on this one thing?
Yeah.
I don't think people should be I don't think anybody should be pressured, but I definitely think it's weird to pressure teenagers into it. That's just weird to me.
Absolutely. It is so weird. And y'all had such a good foundation with y'all's relationship with other things. And everybody was focused on a very private thing that was y'all's choice and y'all's choice only. And I don't understand why that was the thing they focused on. Nobody cared about the other stuff of y'all's relationship, like what hobbies y'all had in common or any shit like that. Literally all I heard for years was, I wonder when Deann and Paul's gonna have sex. And I was like, I don't care when they're gonna have sex. That's weird. That's my sister and her boyfriend,
Right.
Why would I care about that? I care if they're pressuring each other, but other than that, they both assured me they're not. That's all I care about.
Exactly. And then that's why I said I agree with the friend that was like, nah, he'll be fine.
Yes.
I agree with that. He'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not ready, don't do it.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us to number 5. We want to talk about the horror movie survival rules and just rules in general that movies make, and if they listen to them or if they break them, and how do we feel about this. But specific to this movie, the 3 horror movie survival rules that this one gives, he literally talks them through it, is 1, never have sex if you want to survive a horror movie. 2, never drink or do drugs. And 3, never say, I'll be back.
Yep.
Paul, take us away.
So the couple points that I took from this is to not have sex rule. Okay. So in Friday the 13th, there's a lot of sex that happens during that time, and they totally break this rule, and a lot of them get killed. So it just goes to show you right there that part of Randy's rule works, in certain movies. And then also another point that I've taken from this is also never assume the killer is dead.
Yes.
Because like in Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and a lot more, they think they got the killer and it's done. But yet they have more than one movie that comes out. So it's like, nope, you're not done yet. Even though you chopped my head off, I'm still there.
Right.
Come on. So that's what I took pretty much.
Yeah. For that, I always think of the double tap rule from Zombieland. Make sure you shoot them in the head, or at least shoot them twice, because they coming back.
Right. One movie rule that I think a lot of movies mess it up. They mess it up to a certain point where I almost don't enjoy movies with this in it, is the time travel rules. Which this movie doesn't do it, but I'm just saying it's one of the movie rules, since we're talking about that. I absolutely, whenever a movie like the preview is saying they're going to do time travel, I basically start getting anxiety from the beginning of the movie. Because they break their rules so often.
Yes.
That it's just so, it's like, okay, so this movie has no rules, basically. We're just going to go back in time and do whatever we want.
Yeah.
And it's going to do magically whatever we want, even if we said that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And I don't like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. The one thing about movie rules is if you establish a rule at the beginning of the movie, and then by the end of the movie, the way you fix the situation is you break that rule with no explanation on how the rule changed. You just, we did this, but you said you couldn't do that, and there's no explanation on why it suddenly is possible. You broke your rule, and it's a stupid movie.
Right.
It just is.
In this one, they say never have sex if you want to survive, which Sydney does lose her virginity right at the end of the movie.
Yes.
How do y'all feel? Do y'all feel like that was a rule that got broken here? Or do you feel like that didn't mess up the movie? How did y'all feel about that? Because he goes through all these rules. No, she doesn't drink or do drugs. She doesn't say I'll be back, but she does in fact lose her virginity by the end of the movie. Do you think that messes something up there with they followed the other two rules but not that one?
I think I'm going to eat my words, because I don't think that technically, yes, it breaks the rule that they established.
She's like,
but
hold on.
That is a rule that Randy brought up. That's a character in the movie who made that rule up. That's not a rule that the movie set in place. You know what I mean? So like this movie was set in like a real town, like not a real town, but like a town that uses real logic and real like things. Like it's not time travel, it's not fantasy, it's not anything like that. So it follows rules of like real life.
Right, because we don't know if at the beginning of the movie the girl that got killed, that Drew Barrymore played, ever drank or did drugs. Like
wasn't a virgin.
Or wasn't a virgin.
You know what I mean?
We don't know that either.
So like it's not a rule that the movie put in place. So like rules that I would have meant that couldn't be broken was like cell phones had to work the right way. They couldn't have just made up shit about how a cell phone worked. Or, or the fact that Stu and Billy needed to be absent when a kill was happening. That would have been a rule that they couldn't break.
I think they are also trying to make fun of it. Is what I took away from it was they were trying too hard to make it a game and make it a movie. So Billy and Stu are they kind of have turned these killings into a game, and they figured out, you can't be a virgin and die. Maybe that's
why Billy tried hard to get her in bed.
Exactly. And then once they did, they were like, oh, now she can die.
Yes.
But
that's not logical to real life.
Exactly. Just because she's not a virgin anymore doesn't mean she actually just has to fall out and die.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there's like
there's a gray area there.
There's a bend in it because there was a lot of people that was drinking at this party house.
Yeah.
Stu's
right,
house,
and they didn't all die.
Right. So I think it's just like, I think what Randy was trying to say was that it's helpful if you don't do these things. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you're actually going to die.
Yeah. Because, like, even in other horror movies, that
like, not everybody that breaks the rule
dies.
Yeah. Has to die. Right.
Exactly. Just makes
because then Gail would probably have to have died.
Yes.
Dewey would have probably have to die. Like any adult in the movie, because they've all drank or did some type of...
even not just this movie, like Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween eventually has kids, and she's still running her franchise. You know what I mean?
Right.
So She has
So
to have
yes,
sex.
there's rule, but you're talking more about movie rules, like kind of like you said, if someone is doing the killing and they're the killer, they couldn't be in the last scene where they're there.
Yes.
While someone, unless it's something like there's two people working it.
Yes, exactly. Same kind of thing of like a movie rule specifically for Halloween is Michael Myers can't be killed. But then in the latest one, they kill him. That breaks their rule. It really does.
Right.
Technically, that shouldn't be possible according to their own rules.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what I mean. You know, when a movie sets up a rule. The characters can say whatever the fuck they want. Randy is a great character, but it doesn't really matter what he says the rule is. It matters what the movie establishes the rule is. You know what I mean?
Right. You feel the same way, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees. It is said in there that only a Voorhees can kill a Voorhees.
Exactly.
You know, and that is what happened.
Right.
You
So
know?
if there's a hardcore rule
Yeah.
about that's the rule you have to follow. Right.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's time to ask your question. Paul, you're our guest, so we'll let you go first.
Well, thank you. The one question I have is killing the principal. What was the motive for that?
Yeah, because
You
we
know.
kind of figured out the other one's motives. And
Yeah.
we couldn't we talked about it, we couldn't figure that one out.
Yeah, what was Billy and Stu's motive for killing the principal? Look, we all don't like our principals, or we all did not like our principals. Doesn't mean we're going to kill the principal.
Yeah.
Right, but this principal
you know-
wasn't a bad guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. He also didn't do anything to Billy or Stu.
No,
or-
and putting in the curfew made them be able to have the party, and like it helped. I don't understand like why they were mad at him.
I don't
Yeah, they were all like,
understand.
hooray, we get
Yeah.
off of school early.
Yeah, there was kind of no reason because the reason for
They
the
must have
beginning-
just did it for fun.
yeah
Which is stupid.
for funsies. Yeah.
Right. Rochelle?
Okay, so my question was, I just really need to know how the conversation between Billy and Stu went. Like, did Billy show up at Stu's house and was like, "Hey, man, let's go become serial killers"? Like, how does that start?
Right.
Are y'all chatting real late one night and both like, "Hey, I kind of want to kill people"? Like, what happened there?
That's weird.
That's weird.
Shouldn't happen.
Shouldn't happen.
My question is, what is it with the lack of empathy in this movie? First and foremost, they just lost 2 students, and it drives me nuts that the next scene you see at the school, there's people running down the hallway in the ghost face mask. I'm sorry, but whenever I went to high school, that person would have got beat up by the whole football team because that he was wearing a Leatherman jacket. He had to play in a sport. Sport people are close. You become a family whenever you play a sport in high school. There's no way, there's absolutely no way that these kids are running around making fun
Of the fact that
of the fact that
Mhm.
they've just lost 2 friends. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
There was a lack of empathy there. And then whenever they find out, they get the call that the principal's dead, they're all like, let's go see his dead body. What?
yeah.
No, that was unbelievable to me. It made the movie just, I'm sorry, that's unbelievable. I can't think that people would actually react like
Not in
that.
a small town anyway.
No. You know everybody.
You know everybody.
You know everybody's parents in there. Everybody. There's no way that you're gonna celebrate and make a joke out of it. And the people that are making a joke, they gon' get beat up
Yeah.
in the parking lot.
Yeah.
You know, because this ain't funny.
No.
I just lost my friend, and we lost our principal. There'd be some kind of memorial service. They gloss over the principal dying. It just turns into, oh, we want to go see his dead body. That is so weird. And so, like, that's not, I didn't like it. And why?
Yeah.
Why did they choose that for this movie? There's no hint of, like, sadness in this movie over losing somebody other than Sydney with her mother. But Sydney's mom isn't the only one that dies.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. So, I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Our question for the listeners, I'm sure it's predictable, but we have to ask it. It's time. We have to say it. We need to know, what is your favorite scary movie?
I wanted Paul to do the voice. Paul,
Oh,
do the
okay,
voice.
go ahead.
What's your favorite scary movie?
So, just let us know. What's your favorite scary movie? What movie just you watched and you liked? I don't like horror movies,
I
so
know.
it's hard for me.
It was so painful for you to ask.
I can tell you mine, none.
No, yeah.
Sister scores, I'm gonna go with mine. Y'all already know it's a one heart. It was okay, mystery. I solved it. I felt like Scooby Doo, but it wasn't bad. But it was not for me.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy the killing.
We know. That's why me and Paul usually go to the movies to watch the new horror movies.
Right.
Yeah.
So y'all tell y'all's ratings because it's probably going to be way more interesting. So it's the sister scores. Mine is one heart. What is y'all's?
So mine be 2 hearts. I think it's worth the watch due to the fact of it being a franchise. Means it has a lot of movies. It's always good to watch what started it all.
Yeah, the original.
The original. Also, it's a good horror movie for its time.
Yeah.
Even though it's still going on currently, it's just there's a reason why it's been going on for so long.
Yeah. Well, I gotta be the odd one out. I gave it 4 hearts because it is my favorite horror movie.
Yeah.
I'm not like super into horror. I go with Paul because I like movies and he needs somebody to go with him. So, but it is my favorite horror movie. But when I look back on all of them I watch, it's my favorite.
So you would highly recommend it?
Yes, I would highly recommend it to anybody who likes horror movies. Especially if you're trying to get, like Paul said, if you're trying to get into the Scream franchise, you gotta watch the original. You have to start there.
Right.
All
right. Any last remarks?
I have nothing other than it's a really good movie.
I just want to ask Paul, did you enjoy being a part of our podcast?
Yes, I did, and I hope to be back soon.
Thank you, everyone who joined in and listened today. We would love to hear your thoughts on what was discussed. You can do that on any of our social platforms. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at What Women Watch Podcast, and on Twitter at What Women Watch. Also, watch out for any announcements we make regarding what the next week's episode will be. We have fun ideas and would love y'all to be a part of that. Also, we would love to hear ideas from you guys as well if y'all have any for the podcast. Make sure to join us each week, Thursday, on Spotify for the What Women Watch podcast. As always, we hope you enjoyed the episode. Bye!
Bye!
Bye.